The views expressed in this podcast are our own and do not constitute endorsement by the Department of Defense, Department of the Air Force, or the U.S. government. Bring us her triumphs, her challenges, her legacy. Bring us women. A podcast brought to you by Isabella Horning and Allie Clark.
Hey, Bring Us Women Squad. Today we are bringing you a royal guest who is serving Crown combat boots and CEO energy, and we're so here for it.
Meet Madi Marsh, USAFA Class of 2023, Harvard graduate student, former Miss America, and founder of the Whitney Marsh Foundation. Madi, we know you're so busy, and so we are thrilled that you were able to join us here today.
Y'all, I'm super excited.
Well, great. Yeah, speaking of busy, we saw on your Instagram that you've been having an absolute blast in Switzerland. How was that?
It was so much fun. My little sister is a sophomore, I guess now rising junior at SMU, and a part of her scholarship cohort, they actually sent them to Europe for 2 weeks to do a World War II tour. So they took them all over to a lot of the different historic sites, and then at the very end, my dad and I decided to go meet her in Switzerland just because they've never been before, and I went with my fiance for 60 days, and it was one of our absolute favorite spots, so I told my family that we have to go there. So we just went and beat-bopped around Switzerland for a week, and it was awesome.
Very jealous. I didn't get to go there over 60 days, but definitely a bucket list item, especially after seeing those pictures.
It's beautiful.
So,
it's hiking. It's like the best place in the world to go.
Okay, perfect. Noted. So kind of getting into what we need to know about Miss Madi Marsh, we want to hear about how you first found yourself at the Air Force Academy and how that journey was for you.
Absolutely. So I was a very big space camp nerd growing up. It started off, I wanted to be a marine biologist. I've always been really interested in all things science. I used to want to study gorillas and their mannerisms.
As all young girls do.
Exactly. And then wanted to be a volcanologist. Then I wanted to study archaeology, and then I landed on marine biology. And my marine biology trip, it was the first time that I got to see the stars with no light pollution out in the middle of the ocean. I think I was 13 or 14 years old. The whole 3 weeks is teaching you how to sail, how to keep a boat up, all these different things, long time ago.
Wow.
And decided to go to space camp. And when I went to space camp, I was like, oh, I really want to go to space. And I met all of these incredible astronauts there. And I kept hearing all of these different stories about how can I become them? And the main pieces of it were, most of them were test pilots or fighter pilots, obviously all military, and a lot of them came from academies. And so I decided that that was going to be my goal in life, was following in their footsteps in this very, very 30-year long plan. And that's how I ended up at the Air Force Academy. And then I kind of decided my senior year that I wanted to do a big switch away from that because it just wasn't where my passions were aligned anymore. So I switched away from astronaut and wanted to make my outside of the Air Force career primarily focus on healthcare policy, running a nonprofit, and not going to space anymore. So it's changed a lot since why I wanted to come to USAFA, but very happy that I got to end up there regardless.
Yeah, I would say Allie and I had different tracks I don't think we were had our lives that planned out and in order when we were that age, but nonetheless, we all ended up at the Air Force Academy, which is pretty cool. And again, that school, that plan that you had is no small feat, as we all three kind of saw that. So was there ever a point in your academy experience when you wanted to quit? You wanted to throw in the towel and you were like, nope, this isn't for me anymore?
I tried to my very first day of basic. So for some background, my mom passed away 9 months before I entered into basic, just about. So when it was time for me to go off to basic training, I was having to leave behind all of my family in Arkansas. Obviously, when you're in basic, your entire life changes, and all the things that I had been doing to avoid grief were about to be taken away. And so the morning of basic, I had messaged my summer seminar cadre and I said, I'm not going to go anymore. And my dad, this had obviously been like a dream that I had been talking about for probably 4 years at this point. Every single night, this is all my parents did to get me here. And my dad told me there was a coffee shop downstairs. Let's just go have a coffee. There was no coffee shop. There was just a taxi that he forced me to get into and go to basic. And I have this very vivid memory standing on the footsteps and realizing that if I were to turn around, unlike a lot of my classmates around me, my mom was not going to be there watching me. And I just remember some cadre came up to me, and I think I probably screwed up the 7 basic responses and asked why I was crying. And I probably made them feel so terrible because I was like, my mom's not here, and I don't know if I should be here anymore. So 24 hours in, I called my dad and I was like, this isn't for me. I'm done. And my dad said, you can quit, but you can't come home to our house. So I stayed in basic. Had to have some tough
That's a pretty good
fatherly love
motivator.
because my dad had realized that most likely the real reason I wanted to leave was not actually because I no longer wanted to serve in the Air Force, but because I was wrestling with all of these other major life events, like losing my mom at 17, being away from home for the first time, all the different things that people deal with when they get put into the military. And then halfway through basic, he was like, if you make it through, you can leave. And so I got a full ride to Georgia Tech, signed up for the ROTC program, put in all of my uniform measurements, and I was going to leave right after I was done with basic and go there. And then when I finished basic, I kind of started to think, well, maybe I just do 1 semester. Like I made it this far at this point, I might as well try a little bit of time here. Ended up hating the first semester.
It's okay, as we all do, I think.
It's freshman year, and obviously just still having to deal with everything that is freshman year, that it's already tough for everyone regardless, and then coupling the grief on top of that was just like put me over the edge. And so I was like, I'm gonna leave, I'm gonna apply to transfer to another school, and I'm gonna be done. And then when I came back spring semester, that's when so many things started to change for me. I had my very first physics class, and I met Dr. Anderson. If y'all have ever heard of him, he was down in the QRC.
Yep.
He did literally helped everybody pass all their calculus, all their physics classes. Amazing man. And I walked in and I told him my 30-year-long plan. And he was like, why are you an astro major? You should be a physics major. So he marched me up to wherever it is, the registrar, to go change my major. I changed it that morning. And ever since then, he has been such an incredible mentor in my life. He kept me at the academy. He was there every single time I cried after a horrible physics test. And I was like, I want to quit my major. Why did you make me do this? He's coming to our wedding. He's so close to my fiance. And that's the second part is a month after this, I ended up meeting now the man that I'm going to marry. And having those 2 people in my life really shifted my entire academy experience, and decided maybe I'll try 1 more semester. Maybe I'll try another. And then by the time senior year rolled around, I really fell in love with the academy and couldn't imagine leaving it because of that hardship that I experienced freshman year. Made it all the more sweet whenever I finally got to throw up my hat alongside people that really formed me and stuck beside me when it sucked and when I wanted to be done so bad.
Yeah, I mean, I think, one, it's hard enough to go to the academy, and then coupled with everything else that you were going through at the same time is almost unimaginable. But I think you make a great point to say that no matter where you came from, no matter what you experienced going through the academy, what gets us through is the people around us and the mentors that you had, the friends that you had, your fiance, all these people that really pull all of us across that stage on graduation day. So I think it's really important that we lean on all those around us, because I don't know anyone who's made it through the academy alone.
Absolutely.
Definitely not. I know when I was a freshman, Issa was my upperclassman, and I was not the best freshman at all. So, yeah, okay. At least we relate on that level. But I remember she dragged me down to the CrossFit gym. I couldn't even do a pull-up. I was pathetic, and she's like, let me integrate you with my team. Let me like show you that like you deserve to be here, like you can make it through here. So I totally get like being lifted up by the people around you and that being like the reason you stay. But I do want to know, how did you meet the Mans?
So, I mean, I guess y'all might get this. I mean, you know how you can't really, like, you can't go to people's dorms and ever,
I don't
and
know. Allie
oh,
used to sneak out after dark. That's
Okay,
part
okay.
of why she was a bad freshman.
That is true. That is one
I
part of why I was a
But
bad
yes,
freshman.
us rule followers,
I was
we
a
don't
big
go to
rule
others.
follower. So I only had the people, I guess, that were in my classes. I wasn't on a team. So Walker and I met through Tinder and classic, I guess, Tidette story in some ways. And he was a boxer at the Air Force Academy, so he grew up doing Muay Thai since he was really little. Fought and was like a world champion 3 times, fought on Team USA in high school, wanted to serve, came to the Air Force Academy, was a freshman for the Wing Open. And Issa, you might remember this. So he fought a senior his freshman year, and all of Walker's fights that I've ever watched, he's knocked them out in under a minute. So he knocked out this senior
Same.
on his final fight. And so all of the freshmen, it's like right before recognition, and everybody was just like, hell yeah, like destroy the upperclassmen. This guy's doing it for us. I didn't know that this was that guy. And the night after he won, I didn't respond to his message that he had left me from like 3 weeks prior. He said some pickup like, how does Tinder work? I still don't know what like his follow online was, but I thought what he was gonna say is that he accidentally matched with me, and I was like, I can't deal with the embarrassment from this, so I'm just not gonna respond. Then I finally worked up the courage to respond, and we instantly started talking. Our first date obviously was in service dress as freshmen at a Mexican
Classic.
restaurant in Springs.
Adorable.
Was super embarrassing having him run behind me on the strips in uniform. That's something that I don't think I'm ever quite going to be able to get out of my head. And then we got sent home for COVID and stuck together ever since, and have been together since freshman year. So thanks, Tinder, I guess.
Shout out Tinder.
Yeah. Well,
That's super cool.
speaking of other memories from the academy, do you have a favorite one?
Oh gosh, there are so many. I mean, going to the sand dunes with Walker, that was probably one of my favorites, like going to explore around. That was something he tried to make me go do a lot because my first 2 years, I really just poured myself into academics. That was my way of avoiding grief, and real life was just shutting everything else off. And he made it his priority to make sure that I made memories with people because he didn't want me to throw up my hat at the end of USAFA and have nobody to celebrate it with no memories around me. So we spent a lot of time exploring Colorado. We went to our sponsor family house literally almost every Sunday. So most of our memories were me cooking like 5,000 calorie meals for them and making banana foster paired with my double chocolate chip banana bread. And so we had a lot of great moments like that. And obviously, graduation was probably one of the most special days of the academy because of everything that it encompasses. Like, I just remember when, after we threw up the hats, I'm crying, and then Walker comes over to come put on my gold bars for me. And it's just the fact that I didn't think I was ever going to make it through basic because I wanted to quit so bad. I didn't think that I was going to make it through freshman year. Sophomore year kind of sucked. And it was just all of these different things that I had to do without my mom that were hard. And I ended up finding a way to love it and making it meaningful. Getting to have that moment with someone like Walker that I care about so much just symbolizes all of the grief and the hardship that I experienced from like the 5 years prior to that in one moment. And so I will be forever grateful for all of the people that I met at the academy, all of my teachers that I've had there, all the people that poured into me, and especially all the people that made sure that I never quit, because I'll remember that day for the rest of my life.
Same. I feel the same way. Having those Thunderbirds fly over, like you've seen, that's like the go-to like academy plug. It's like, look at this cool video of planes flying over as everybody tosses their hat up in the air. But that moment, I feel like it's like the thing that I see flash through everyone's mind is like all of those moments that they were up late in their room studying, that they were calling their parents being like, I want to leave this place, I can't do it, you know. And then suddenly it's like all those moments kind of fade away. And
Yeah.
now when I think back at the academy, I'm like, I kind of like, maybe it's like selective memory, but I choose to just remember the good times.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, I don't, all those bad times, I don't even remember those anymore. So yeah, I agree with that. Well, if you had one piece of advice for a cadet, what would you tell them after making it through those 4 years?
Ooh, there are so many things, but I think balance is the most important thing that you can learn at USAFA. There was a lot of time my freshman year that I genuinely was not making memories, and although school is very important because I put so much time into my grades and to outside activities, it's why I got to have what I have today. However, none of that would mean anything if I didn't have people to share it with. Like, getting to go to Harvard would mean nothing if I didn't have my fiance to call every night that I made these core memories with. And so being able to find the best way to balance your life, to be successful in, yes, your career, but also successful in your personal lives. I hear way too often so many people that let their lives pass them by and they don't end up getting to live with their spouses. They don't end up prioritizing their friendships on bases and really growing with the people that they're stationed with or even at the academy, and just kind of letting that part of their life go. That's something that I've constantly had to work on to make sure that's the priority, because at the end of my life and at the end of everybody else's life, I hope to God you are not thinking about the one question on your math test or an extra piece of thing that you forgot for an exam, but you're thinking back on the memories and the people that you got to share your life with. That is the most important thing, and that is the biggest gift that you can give to yourself and also to the people around you.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely correct. And that reminds me of a M5 kind of talk they made us listen to as cadets. And these two grads were talking to us. And one of them, two female grads, and one of them was talking about how she just studied the whole time she was at USAFA, and she got great grades. She got the scholarship that she wanted, the job that she wanted, the base that she wanted after all of that. And the other cadet, or the other grad, was talking about how she didn't necessarily get the best grades, but she knew everyone at USAFA and she had great friends, great people. And then fast forward to when they were out in the big Air Force, the grad that knew everyone would go to bases and have friends everywhere she went because she had made all those relationships. Whereas the grad that just studied and was, you know, this star-studded academic cadet got to these bases and was alone later on in her career because she never poured into those other avenues of your life that are so important, because that's what really matters at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
Well, we do want to kind of switch going into kind of what we all saw you achieve, which was Miss America. We want to know a lot more about that. I'm kind of like shameless plug. I didn't know anything about Miss America or any of that pageants, anything. I'm a sports kid by, trade, knew nothing about any of that. But since you won Miss America, I feel like I've become like a fangirl for pageants, all of that. So we want to know, how did you get into pageants?
I actually didn't start competing in pageants until my freshman year at USAFA, and it literally was all because I felt like I was going crazy once again because of all of the stuff with grief. And obviously there are so many different things freshman year, like not getting to wear civilian clothes or not getting to go home and see your family. All of these different things with a purpose to try to get you to assimilate to a group. And within all of that, although it is very important to like put yourself with other people and to not just be this individual but a team member, but at the same time, I think it's such a it's such an interesting age because you are still trying to figure out who you even are as an individual. So it's this interesting play of all of these different factors going on at that specific age while you're at USAFA. Things are hard. And I was like, I just need to do something that is fun, that can be productive for my nonprofit. I started my nonprofit about 2 weeks after my mom passed away with my whole family, and it was something that I really cared about. And so I had watched my cousin Maddie compete in a couple of pageants. And in the pageants that I've competed in, a lot of it is about public speaking, having some sort of community service initiative, and mine could be practicing pitching my nonprofit and kind of developing it in that way. And also, I got to dress up. And for me, that's just like a part of my personality. Like, I love I love wearing pretty dresses and finding good shoes and doing my hair and makeup. That's just something that I enjoy. And obviously, when you're in uniform, that is not something that you're doing. So I like to do that outside of my professional life. So I entered into my first pageant, ended up really liking it, competed in a couple of random systems throughout the year, and then my senior year, I watched Miss America for the first time since 2017. I used to watch it like every year with my mom. And I watched it and I was like, this is the system that I've been wanting to compete in. Like everywhere else, it was like I didn't really quite feel like I had fully connected with that system because they're all different. They're all different flavors of competing that have different styles of competition, different personalities they're looking for. And when I watched Miss America, I was like, this is what I want. So I dropped out of all the other competitions that I had signed up for that year, and I just signed up to compete for Miss Colorado in the America system. And ended up winning that and then got to go on to Miss America, and the rest was history.
That's awesome. I've never seen any of the pageantry before, but when we saw you get into that, I was like, that's awesome. And I think it's so cool too, because I feel like at the academy, we don't really see a lot of, girls kind of pursuing that route. So like, I feel like that was pretty special. And, while you were going through that, being like part military or having a military affiliation, did you like receive any like pushback for kind of choosing to go into pageantry?
I mean, everyone is probably going to get pushback for everything. That is to say, I did have a lot of really great people that were helping me navigate because this was the first time someone did it. So there were a lot of big learning moments for me of rules and regulations of the Air Force. I mean, I could tell you inside and out now most of the stuff you can and cannot do as a military member, what is appropriate to say, and just like all of the growing pains of the Air Force, especially throughout my year as Miss America, because right after I won, typically your first phone call is to your family members. Mine was Air Force attorneys. The people at the Pentagon called me, and we had been planning for months prior to this because right after I won Miss Colorado, I was like, oh shoot, this is the first time like I'm actually going to have to go compete nationally now. And I need to let the Air Force know. Obviously, I had always made it very clear, like, my career comes number one. Like, if it's between competing in pageants or being in the Air Force, I'm going to choose being in the Air Force because the whole pageant thing was just supposed to be, it's like a hobby, something fun I'm doing on the side, but the Air Force is my profession.
Yeah.
So I made sure that I communicated with all the right people. They got me in touch with people at the Pentagon, AFPC, recruiting, all in advance to make sure we had some semblance of a plan before going in. So after I won, I got a call from the people at the Air Force, and I was like, I don't know if you're watching the television right now, but we're going to have to meet tomorrow now. And they were like, we're already on it. We're going into work. And then the SecAF called me the next day, and everyone's trying to figure out and decide, do I stay on active duty? Do they put me on reserves? Do I go full civilian for a year? Do I turn down being Miss America and just go back to the Air Force? So I kind of just put that fully in the hands of the Pentagon. A lot of people think that I was just kind of like driving the Air Force, but it was really the Air Force was driving for me to make the best decision, not only for the Air Force, but for my career, my personal life, all of these different interesting factors. So of course they ended up letting me stay on active duty. I've talked about that a lot this past year. They took me everywhere for recruiting events all around the globe, to schools to go speak to students about the importance of joining the military, what it's really like, what it's like going to the Air Force Academy, all of that fun stuff. So yes, there was pushback on my year, but I think the end of the day, when we look at the data from what the Pentagon was able to pull and the people we were able to recruit from last year, was pretty incredible. So that was a lot of fun, and I got to meet so many awesome kids from all around the US that are so interested in serving, or are now interested in serving, that I think that was just such a cool part, because I remember being 14 and not knowing anything about the military and wanting to talk to people that knew a little bit about it. And obviously, I'm not going to say that I'm, an experienced Air Force officer. I'm still very early on in my career, and my first assignment was going to grad school, but still getting to talk to them about what is USAFA like? What are the different career positions you can take on in the Air Force? Can you have a family in the military? All these questions that I was wrestling with when I was younger, I got lucky enough that the Air Force sent me around to do that as a job for a year.
Well, I think that, honestly, shout out to the Air Force for deciding to let you accept Miss America, because that would have been really sad if they didn't, especially because one of the coolest things, in my opinion, that I got to tell, like, the people I worked with, my family, my friends who weren't familiar with it, was that over the past year, we had both Miss America and Miss USA as 2 female service academy graduates. Like, how incredibly cool that is, not just because of the platform that they have, but as also being someone who I got to do recruiting for my first assignment, and seeing the power that someone can have when you're maybe not like the norm and you're telling kids, hey, look at me. I'm doing all this stuff that's not your cookie cutter Air Force Academy cadet life, and I'm excelling, and I got to go to the Air Force Academy. And I just think, like, watching all those events that you got to do throughout your Miss America year really just kind of showed me even more the power, that all that untapped potential when we have all these different unique recruiting ways to interact with kids and inspire them, to really show them that, like, literally you can do whatever you want with your life. And part of that could be going to the Air Force Academy, and you don't have to sacrifice any part of who you are to go do that.
Absolutely.
Well, kind of on the line of, you mentioned earlier that you like dressing up and you love the outfits, and we've definitely seen that because you've been rocking them on Instagram. Who designed your wardrobe? And tell us all of the details about your dresses.
Oh, let's see. My main Miss America dress was from Sherry Hill. So for all the ladies that have worn Sherry or seen her, she's a big she does a lot of prom dresses, but is also very big in the pageant community. And honestly, the rest of my wardrobe, since I paid for all of it myself, was from brands like Akira. So I was going for affordable.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
crazy.
Except my dress, typically, so we had a really great sponsor out of Colorado. It's called Joann's of Tennessee, and they offer a several $1,000 scholarship to pay for, not scholarship, sponsorship, to pay for your evening gown dress. So that's like the most expensive thing you have to pay for, is that dang evening gown dress. But everything else throughout the
Yeah.
week was, I've used Akira a lot. My interview outfit, I think we got from Nordstrom, maybe. I just, every time that I'm trying to shop for stuff, especially since I'm doing everything for my wedding right now, happening in 2 weeks, everything that I've tried to get is like, I want stuff to, one, be as affordable as it can be, but two, something that I can wear again, because I don't want to drop like $100 or $200 on a dress that I'm gonna be like, well, this was so bridal that it can never be reused again for the rest of my life, and it's just gonna sit in my closet. So I'm very big about reusing and finding affordable items to wear.
I think that's great news to
I
hear,
agree with that
because
level.
we thought here, you were being supplied all your outfits, or, you had a magic credit card or something to buy all these outfits throughout your time as Miss America. So that gives us a lot of hope that we can go find a lot of these outfits out at, normal Nordstrom Rack, anything like that. So what are some of your favorite stores to shop at?
Ooh, Ann Taylor for all business wear. So they have sales all of the time, and a lot of my events. So we also had a sponsor last year called Giovanni. So for a lot of my big media interviews or for big galas, they would allow me to borrow those clothes. But for most of the day-to-day wear, I think almost probably like 60, maybe to 80% of my clothes last year were from my closet. So Ann Taylor, all of my suits are from there. They have great sales all of the time. I started using Nuuly recently because I like to kind of change up my outfits sometimes. So I've been renting from them just because sometimes whenever I'm having to like work a lot or I have a lot of events that I might need something super specific for, I just get stuff from them. I love Target.
What trends are you liking? Because I've seen a lot of the trends at Target right now. We've been seeing a lot of the animal print, cheetah. Are you here for it, or what are you thinking about that?
This is actually my American flag sweater I'm wearing is from Target, and it's the one that I think it's the Ralph Lauren sweater that they made it off of. It's
Yes.
just the knitted. I love their stuff like that. Just all of the basics. And then if I'm wanting something like a little bit more high end that I would wear, like for my rehearsal dinner dress, it's from a place called House of CB, and they're beautiful dresses. They're a little bit pricier, which is why it's like I specifically splurged on it for my rehearsal dinner. Otherwise, that is not something that I typically would have bought for a budget, but I love it, so I'm very happy with it.
I mean, you only get married once too, so
Exactly.
you deserve to splurge on that one.
Yes, you do.
Oh, and Zara. Zara's where my reception cocktail dress is from. It was literally $60.
Noted. I'm taking notes. I have my wedding coming up too, and the name of the game is balling on a budget. So
Yes.
I get it. I get it. We're trying to look stylish. We're trying to ball on a budget. Well, kind of pivoting back into what you were doing with your platform with Miss America. We know that you went and spoke in front of Congress, and we kind of want to hear about your experience with that and how that kind of impacted the Whitney Marsh Foundation and your takeaways.
Absolutely. So I've actually been really close with my congressman since I was, I think, 16 years old. So I've had so many experiences of getting to go up to Capitol Hill. I met him on Academy Day, actually, or it's called Service Day that my high school holds. And in our hallways, they literally have every type of way you could possibly join the military lined up with representatives in the hallway. And my mom was a couple months into treatment at this point, so I had to go by myself. And so I had printed out these packets of writing samples, resumes, college applications, my fitness standards, and I'm handing them out to all of these people from like academy reps. And my congressman ended up being there. And my parents were like, if Congressman Steve Womack is there, you better go up to him. So I went up to the congressman at 16 years old and I handed him my little packet. And he starts to go through the checklist of like, what are your grades? What's your ACT? What's your fitness score? Yada, yada, yada. And then he asked me, like, where are your parents? And I had told him about my mom. And like from then on, he's been such an incredible mentor. This is a little bit off topic, but is a super special story for me. Congressman Womack was very adamant about getting me into the Air Force Academy and has been one of the best mentors that I've had in my life. And he ended up, I don't know exactly what it's called, but it's kind of the equivalent of like early acceptance to USAFA. I don't know. I can't remember the name for it. But I found out on Halloween, I was in a Michael's. I was shopping for some senior year school project. I don't know what it was. And he had told me that I had gotten admission to USAFA as long as he gave me a nomination. And so I got to go home that night, and I told my mom that I'd gotten into USAFA, and she passed away the next morning. And so for me, he gave me such a special opportunity to show my mom that I was actually going to go achieve my dreams. And so he has always been there for me. And every time I need to go on Capitol Hill to talk about my mom, he's gotten to meet my mother and knows our story and how important cancer care in Arkansas is, and really just nationwide. And he's been such a champion of everything that I've wanted to do in my life. The whole reason the SECAF called me the morning after I won Miss America is because Congressman Steve Womack was calling the Pentagon, advocating for me and having my back. So when we went to Capitol Hill, we got to talk all about the different importances of funding, sharing patient stories, and just really all people from all different corners of Capitol Hill, both sides of the aisle. And really, it's just so special every time that I get to go in there and my mom gets to live on, because people like them will allow me to talk to them about what it was like for her experiencing that at the age of 41, and what the pancreatic cancer environment looks like today, and why we have to do more, because we're 4 decades behind on research and funding and education and opportunity in the pancreatic cancer field. So it was one of my highlights of my year last year, was getting to have meaningful moments like that, talking about people like my mom. So I owe it all back to 16 years old, meeting Congressman Steve Womack, because he was the man that's put me in those rooms, that got me to the Air Force Academy, and has had my back for now 8 years.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think if I had the opportunity to speak in front of Congress, I might pass out. I'm not sure. I'm yet to experience it, but I think that might have been the experience that I had. But we do know that you're studying public policy at Harvard. So do you think that helped you prepare to talk in front of Congress or talk on the Hill at all? Or have you used parts of that degree that you're working towards with some of your work on the Hill?
Yeah, so a couple of things. I think what really prepared me was I used the public speaking lab almost every day at USAFA. I would go in after class every day. I had an hour meeting with Mr. Iberi Shea, and he would run me through different political questions, different things about my nonprofit, anything that you could possibly think of, because I was in the scholarship cohorts while I was at USAFA, and all of our interviews were very hard-hitting. I think I got asked about how I would fix systemic racism and barriers to voting in the United States in my Truman Scholarship interview. So those were the sorts of things that I was constantly being asked all the time in those scholarship interviews. So I prepped with them intensively every day for almost the whole 4 years there. And then sometimes I would go in for pageant interview prep. I mean, they just did everything with me, and it's all for free. It's a great, great, great cadet resource. So that really honed in my public speaking skills to be adaptable to different environments, whether that be for a media interview sitting next to Hoda and Jen, or that's going to be me speaking to the CEO of a company, or now I'm sitting down with a congressman or congresswoman, or I'm talking to a 14-year-old or a 6-year-old about the military. They really prepared me for it all. So that was a really big piece of my preparation.
Is that resource in the QRC? Because I've never heard of that. So it's like it's like a speech class prep thing.
So it's basically runs exactly like the QRC does. You just sign up for times just like you would for the QRC. It's called the Public Speaking Lab, or PSL. And you go on there and you can sign up for these different slots as cadets, and they can help you with anything, whether that be maybe you have a fear of presenting in front of your squad mates and you can practice doing presentations with them. Or if your problem is interviews. I know they had a cadet that was doing special forces, and I guess there's a lot of different interviews that they do for that. So they helped him with his special forces interviews. They helped me with my Miss Colorado interviews. And I mean, literally anything. You can go to them with just about any different public speaking help you might need, and it's free for cadets. So utilize that resource, because I think public speaking as a skill is one of the most important things you can have in any profession, but especially being an officer.
Yeah, I mean, not to tie things back to USAFA, but I think that as hard as the academy is, it's really cool to even still to this day learn about all these different ways that the academy is really trying to, even though it's hard and it's supposed to be hard and you might want to quit, there's so many ways that you can receive help for different things, whatever you might need help with while you're there, to really set you up for the best success if you take advantage of them. But anyways, we kind of want to turn now to, we talked a little bit about your foundation that you started in honor of your mom, but can you just talk a little bit more about when you started it and kind of like what that looked like? Because you were in high school when you did that. So just kind of go into that a little bit more.
Absolutely. So it was about 2 weeks, I think, after my mom passed away, and I was refusing to leave the house. And my older brothers were like, you got to get off of the couch or come to the gym with us. But because I'm a little sister, I refused to work out once we got to the gym. And I went to the locker room and sat in there in protest and was like, I'm not working out. And as I was sitting there, I kind of started to think about, what was I going to do to make sure my mom's loss wasn't going to be in vain? And how was I going to make my life not miserable? Because one of the last things that I promised my mom before she passed away was that I, quote, was going to find a way to be happy again. And I knew that finding a way to be happy again was not going to be found being angry on my couch, and understanding finally at that point that nothing was going to change my circumstances, but what could change is my attitude and approach. And I wanted to remember for, who my mom was and not necessarily what pancreatic cancer had made her. And my mom was a big runner. Even when she was going through chemo, she was still running 10 miles every day. I still have people to this day coming up to me in my hometown gym when I visit, asking me if I'm Whitney Marsh's daughter. And their follow-up is always, I remember watching your mom run in our neighborhood every morning until she physically couldn't anymore. And so since then, I believe this is our 7th year. We've been putting on 5K, 10Ks to help raise money every year, and that goes back to our local hospitals in our town. We've also donated to MD Anderson in the past, and hopefully we'll get to start up a travel fund this next year for patients that can't afford to travel outside of the state for life-saving pancreatic cancer care. So a lot of that, really just helping grow different programs. In the past, we've helped pay for cancer blood tests for patients that are below the poverty line. We've helped start out a program, and we fund what's called the nurse navigator position. So it is a nurse that is attached to patients to help them through their entire treatment, to make sure that they're scheduled on time, that they have their checkups properly, to make sure that they're getting their scans, their treatment, all of the important things that sometimes get lost in the weeds whenever you're having to battle cancer and trying to save someone's life. So we've gotten to coordinate with them on that. And then now leading into my degree at Harvard, I focus on public policy. So I'm getting to write my thesis this next year, and it's going to be about cancer care and delivery in Arkansas. And what are we not doing well as a state? What are our areas of improvement? And getting to use not only the contacts and the skills that I've learned from running our nonprofit in a place like Arkansas where community is so important, to now also focusing on policy implications, on what healthcare things can we be rolling out within our state? What policy initiatives do we have in place? How are we spending our federally appropriated dollars? Are they being used to the best extent possible? Where can we get the most bang for our buck? And above all else, how are we putting patients first? How is it patients above insurance companies, above everybody else, patients being number one at the forefront of everybody's mind? So I'll get to work on that this next year, and hopefully that's going to really come into play with our nonprofit to make sure that we are also donating our dollars to the highest capacity to make sure people in our state get to feel it as much as we want them to.
I hope that gets sent back up to Congress and pushed out to all the other states too, because I think that's huge. And as a poli-sci major, me and Isa we both did some time in the poli-sci department. I love the public policy approach, so that's awesome. Speaking of all of that, how can we get involved with the foundation? How can we help spread awareness as well as all of our viewers?
Absolutely. So our website is whitneymarsh.org. So that's going to be the host for everything. I would highly suggest going and looking up the symptoms of pancreatic cancer and the risk factors. Knowing those can save your life. My mom had those symptoms for about 2 years and was misdiagnosed with IBS until she developed jaundice and they had found a late stage tumor. So, being an advocate for yourself, knowing the symptoms in case one of your friends and family or start to experience them, specifically with our nonprofit. If you're in the area or if you're looking to travel, our race is happening on November 8th this year. It's a Saturday in Fort Smith, Arkansas. We have people from all over come around. We do a street festival afterwards with food vendors, games, live music, a bar, all of the fun things. And if you can't do that and maybe you're looking to volunteer, we have year-round volunteer positions ranging from people working on marketing and media to event planning down to our merchandise operations. Maybe you love to interview people. We have people that run our newsletter that go and speak to physicians across the country, survivors, people who have lost their family members. We've got basically just about a job for anything. So if you're wanting to step into the nonprofit world and check that out, we love to have new people. We always say it's like a family at the foundation. A lot of it is friends that I've met from around the country that come together and work on something good with one another. And maybe they're wanting to experience a little bit more leadership and start to test that out and getting to put them in our chief roles, which basically oversee an entire team, and getting to see them grow as we all learn together and do something good for our community. So we have so many different ways that you can get involved. Everything is useful any way that you give back, whether it be through education, volunteering, donating. All of it's worth it, and all of it is helping us on this process to help save more lives.
Well, I think all of that is incredible. So I know Allie and I will definitely check it out. We'll post a lot of information for all of our viewers so that they know where they can tune in for the Whitney Marsh Foundation. And for myself, I don't know about Allie, but probably won't make it out to Arkansas, but I definitely would do a virtual option if that's possible. So I don't love to run, but I'll run for a cause. But turning to kind of like what's next for you, we saw that you recently started a new consulting company. So what made you want to do that, and what's your vision for that?
I love getting to talk to people. So I've basically just been doing different keynote speeches around the US, getting to do podcasts like this, and then also pouring into the interviewing side. I think it's so important to teach people those public speaking skills. So I have a lot of different clients, whether it be in pageants and wanting to help prep for interviews, hopefully maybe some hopeful academy cadets that are wanting to prep for their nomination interviews, or people just wanting to help out their everyday skills. My entire thing that I've tried to teach people is that it's teaching you public speaking as a lifetime skill and not just specifically for your event. Because obviously there are a lot of people that might be competing in pageants and their mind is, how do I get my interview better to win this pageant, and not how do I just become the best public speaker for the rest of my life as a skill. So that's kind of my vision, helping mentor lots of young men and women to help them develop what I have seen as my most useful skill in my life, and then getting to travel around the US and share my mom's story with so many different audiences.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're the perfect kind of mold to show that, because I think a lot of people think when they see these pageant girls and all that like that's all that they've been training for, that one pageant. But I think what we've learned over the course of the past hour is that you did so many other things to work on your public speaking, work on becoming an astronaut, doing all these other things. And then you were like, well, let me just go take all those skills I already have and do a pageant with them. And you weren't like, you never set out to be like, I'm going to do this pageant, that's why I'm getting better at public speaking. You were kind of already working on that, and then you just got to use those skills other places, which I think is really cool.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
So what is the rest of your Air Force career going to look like, and what are your plans moving forward now that you're making that kind of move back from Miss America back into the forces?
So I still have a year left in graduate school. So I will finish up. This was actually my very first assignment. The Air Force sent me to Harvard Kennedy School while still being on active duty. So I graduate next May and will get restationed. I'll obviously be going into my normal conventional Air Force job. My biggest thing that I'm focusing on, my fiance is an Air Force pilot, and our biggest priority is picking positions to make sure that we get to live together and are able to start a family. So that's going to be the most important thing. TBD on what my Air Force career will look like. I've been especially grateful for what the Air Force gave me last year and everyone that poured into me, not only during my Miss America year, but at the Air Force Academy. So I'm looking forward to getting to give back to the Air Force and getting to serve for however long they will let me stay in. I know there's so much. I got to see so much as Miss America last year with the different jobs and positions that you can have and the bases that you can go to and all these totally unique experiences that you wouldn't get in any other job. So I'm excited to get to start experiencing those firsthand with my husband next year.
Well, we really hope that you guys are able to be put together. I know I'm going through the same thing right now. My husband is also finishing up his pilot training, and it's been really difficult trying to figure out how to make the careers match up when they're still in their training pipeline. And I just finished my intelligence training. So I know that's a huge thing, and I'm really glad because family is important. And I totally agree with your point earlier about trying to stay together and maximize that time and your service and wherever you go, trying to make a difference together. So I really hope that that happens for you guys.
Thank you. I really appreciate that and wishing you and your husband all the best.
Thank you.
Well, speaking of that, I mean, I'm the only single one here, so I guess I'll ask the question to both of you. Wedding planning. I mean, you've been doing it for the past couple months. I know Allie still has a couple months to go, but you're in the home stretch. You said a couple weeks out from your wedding. So are you all planned? Is there still things you have to do? What's that been like?
I mean, I've had a lot of fun planning. I started planning from the moment we got engaged almost 18 months ago. So now I'm in relaxing mode, which is nice.
Allie, are you taking notes?
I'm taking notes. I'm taking notes because she's calm, cool, and collected. And I've been over here like not calm, cool, and collected. But I'm sure it's just because I'm in the earlier phase of getting everything going. So,
Yeah, I mean, I think I got a wedding planner because I knew that if I didn't, then I was going to be super wrapped up in being the event head because that's what I do at our nonprofit basically. And it's very hard to dissociate myself from that. So that's been a big thing. And planning in advance, putting positivity at the forefront of like, even though it is stressful doing all of this stuff, at the end of the day, I only get to have one wedding day and I want it to be amazing because I'm living in the moment. So that's been a big thing that my fiance and I have been focusing on to just like, no matter how stressful or how frustrating wedding planning can be, at the end of the day, like we're getting married. So I'm just super excited for that.
Well, we do have one last question before we wrap up. It's one that we ask all of our guests, so we like to see, what everyone's thinking in regards to this question. But after everything you've accomplished throughout your short time in the Air Force so far, throughout school and Miss America, what do you want your legacy to be?
Honestly, at this point, after having to travel around so much for Miss America last year, I want my family to be my legacy. I realized firsthand, for me at least, that nothing means anything to me if I have nobody to share it with. If I don't have a person to come home to and share my experiences with and get to grow a family and pour into them and teach them the same lessons and guide them throughout life, that I think my kids that I'll get to have in the future will be my greatest legacy. And I really do believe the best investment I've made in my entire life is the person that I've chosen to be my spouse. They are going to be my biggest supporter, my best friend, the person that's going to be my soundboard, the person that I'll get to co-parent with and will be with me for the rest of my life. And our legacy of our relationship and the family that we get to build is truly going to surpass anything that you could write on a resume for me.
I think that's awesome, because I think that, we've touched on this throughout the whole interview, that doesn't matter what you accomplish at the end of the day if you don't have those people that you love next to you. So I think that's an amazing legacy to keep to leave behind. And Allie and I are so thankful that you were able to spare some time to come on our growing podcast. We want to thank you for coming on the Bring Us Women podcast, and we hope our listeners enjoyed hearing from you and your unique journey, whether that was in the Air Force, in the classroom, in graduate school, on the pageant scene, all of it. It's just really incredible. So thank you for coming on.
Thanks so much, y'all.
Thank you for joining us on the Bring Us Women podcast. After hearing Maddie's journey, I hope you're feeling fired up to make your own mark, whether that's in combat boots or in a crown, or maybe even both. Be sure to check out our Instagram for bonus content from today's episode and ways to support the Whitney Marsh Foundation. Until next time, be bold, keep leading, and we can't wait to bring you the next woman. The views expressed in this podcast are our own and do not constitute endorsement by the Department of Defense, Department of the Air Force, or the U.S. government.